Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich, and today's video is sponsored by coffee. This is my spotlight on Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. This is the newest book released, official D&D book released by WotC. I believe it came out yesterday. I have it here, of course, in digital format on D&D Beyond, but of course you can find the book in stores. Content is content. Everything I'm going through and covering here today is going to be within your book. The only difference might be, I don't often know whether the physical books, the actual books, have the exact same maps, like if it's a poster map or something like that. But that being said, always support your local gaming store. So if you are buying it from a store, the physical book that is, you can of course flip through the book and make sure the maps are in there, but whatever. Here we go. Let's look through everything here. As usual, this is a spotlight, so yes, when I'm excited about something, or if there's something that really turns me off, I'll make some comments on it, and I'll give my overall thoughts and opinions a little bit throughout, but for the most part, I am spotlighting this, not doing a review. Simply going through what is here, what you are going to get. I paid with the discounts that they gave and the legendary bundle discount. This is like $25 or something like that. So I'm sure the book is around $30, but hopefully at the end of the spotlight, you'll decide for yourself whether this might be some content that's a good fit for you and your gaming group. So introduction doesn't really need to be said. Ravenloft, right? The domains of dread, horror, Strahd, vampiric, a little bit gloomier, darker, those sort of things, okay? Now, the bulk of what's here in the beginning, where you're dealing with introduction and all this stuff, and it is very heavy-handed with this, but I think that's appropriate, and I'll talk about my thoughts on that at the end of this video. The bulk of the introduction is kind of reminding all readers, here's the type of content that's within this book. You need to tread lightly and decide for yourself whether this is going to be a fit for your table. And it offers a bunch of, it does that a lot. And I'll talk about sort of my thoughts on that as we get further into this review here, or into the spotlight. But you can have your introduction kind of telling you what Ravenloft is, just looking at the pictures. I mean, we've all watched some horror movie or something, Bram Stoker's Dracula or something like that. We kind of know the gist of what's here. You're dealing with undead, you're dealing with vampires, you're dealing with darkness and nightmares and madness and mental, emotional, physical torment and torture and things like this, right? Now, character creation, haunted heroes, lineages, dark gifts. So what do we get in Haunted Heroes? Explore your role in creating a tale of terror and how you might design a character that contributes to frightful adventures. Lineages, I don't want to go over that too much. Consider an origin that ties you to a grim progenitor or inexplicable experience, okay? Dark gifts, they're kind of like, think of blessings, boons, things like this, and how you might obtain those. So just sort of new traits and features that your PCs may get. You have some new subclasses. You have, I believe there is a new background, but it definitely does some reprinting of some stuff, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, of what's already in Curse of Strahd, okay? And then you have horror trinkets, which was also in the book Curse of Strahd as well. But I like that it kind of just takes all of that stuff and it puts it all here. So as we go through in character creation chapter, Haunted Heroes, it starts talking about how you can either start a new character that fits within the horror genre, right? The various domains that you might be playing in, kind of this tone and style of game, but also how you can take your current characters. Maybe you already have a character already made, maybe even another campaign, and your DM has expressed interest in either using sort of the guidelines and the guidance that's offered here into how to turn your story arc and your adventure into something a little more scary, or maybe you're just transitioning, via like a gate or some weird travel mechanism, and you're now moving from your current world where you already have a character and you're moving into these horror themes and horror style of gameplay. So what this initial character creation section does is it kind of just handholds you a little bit and gives you some more role play and story bits, ROLE play, background details like that help you kind of think through how being among a nightmarish horror sort of vibe has changed your character and what things you might want to think through, okay? So it goes through that, As I mentioned earlier, it keeps giving us these little bits on, hey, we're dealing with fright and atmosphere and being scared. Tread, each table needs to separate how far you want to push that envelope. It does that all the time, okay? As we get in through some of the other parts here, you have lineages, and basically what it explains here is the following lineages are races that characters might gain through remarkable events. These overshadow their original race, if any, becoming their new race. A character might choose a lineage during character creation, their transformation having occurred before play begins, or events might unfold during adventures that lead your character to replace their race with this new lineage, okay? What are the new ones? You have a Dhampir. There's 3 new ones, Dhampir, Hexblood, and Reborn. They're all really, really cool. So you've got some pretty neat artwork, okay? It's scattered throughout. This is not an art book, of course, or a major monster manual, but you've got some really good pictures and artwork throughout. Typical WotC style, there are resources that they can pull from. So what I like on all of these, or these 3 lineages, the Dhampir, the Hexblood, and the Reborn, it first gives you some background and flavor details, like little charts you can roll on, right? It mentions right here, while many Dhampirs thirst for blood, your character might otherwise gain sustenance from the living. Roll on or choose an option from the Dhampir Hungers table to determine what tempts your character to feed. Okay, so I like that it offers these little bits like this where you can roll a d6, you can roll a d8, and start coming up with kind of the flavor and the backstory as to either if you're creating a Dhampir from the get-go, from scratch, or your character is transitioning to sort of this new lineage. And then, of course, you've got the traits. You're a humanoid. Dhampirs are medium or small. You choose the size when you gain this lineage. Your walking speed is 35 feet. Ancestral legacy, it mentions the details about that here. Dhampirs have dark vision, as you would expect. Deathless nature, you don't need to breed. You don't need to breathe. You can breed if you want to. Spider climb, you have a climbing speed, vampiric bite, and so on. Okay? Hexblood. I really like this picture a lot. The little subtle touches of kind of the vials on the belt, the expression on the face really sells a lot. And then the complementary, or the color choices here of the green vest with sort of the gold yellowish trim on the outside, the dark blue. It's a really good piece of artwork. So you're kind of your origin point, so to speak, for the Hexblood is you're the heir. Hags kind of come from that bloodline, or those sort of creatures. Here's more of the roleplay bits, roll on these charts, and so on. It mentioned this with the Dhampir, I didn't go over it, but it explains how your origins might tie into one of the various domains of dread that currently exist that are talked about here in this book. And then, of course, you have your traits. One moment. I'm slowly dying. Contrary to the Dhampir, I need to breathe. Your Fae. You're medium or small. Choose the size when you gain this lineage. Your walking speed's 30 feet. Here's the ancestral legacy part. Dark vision once again. You have an eerie token. It's kind of cool. As a bonus action, you can basically remove a lock of your hair, one of your nails, one of your teeth, and then it's imbued with various properties, and you can basically leave it somewhere, and as long as you're within 10 miles of it, you can give sort of a telepathic message through that little token that you left. Or you can gain basically like the eyes and ears as though you're in that location where the token is. So it's pretty neat. And then, of course, you have hex magic, allowing you to cast Disguise Self and Hex. All right? And then here's some details on if you want to take it further and become an actual hag. And then the third one is the Reborn. Kind of these dead, partially dead looking guys. I think they're Fae? Humanoid. So you have the normal flavor bits. What are your lost memories? What are the details that made you transition into becoming a Reborn, or that make you a Reborn if you're going to start with one? Here's the domains of dread that you might associate them to, and then traits. You're a humanoid, medium or small, you choose, 30 feet, ancestral legacy, deathless nature. You have escaped death. A fact represented by the following benefits. As a Reborn, remember, this is kind of a new race, right? Or what you've now become. You have an advantage on saving throws against disease and being poisoned, and resistance to poison damage. Advantage on death saving throws. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. You don't need to sleep. Magic can't put you to sleep, and you benefit from a long rest after 4 hours, as long as you're inactive, motionless, during which you retain consciousness. Okay? And the cool thing, too, the cool thing is it gives a little more flavor about your sort of past life, but it also gives us some gameplay bits, things that you can add to your character sheet. You temporarily remember glimpses of the past, perhaps faded memories from ages ago or a previous life. Whenever you make an ability check that uses a skill, you can roll a d6 immediately after seeing the number and then add that number to the check. Okay? So there's your 3 new sort of races, if you will. Dhampir, Hexblood, and Reborn. Okay? That is what's in character creation. The bulk of it is kind of talking you through some things that you want to think through in creating a horror-themed character, right? From the get-go, or adapting your current race and class. Within character creation, you also have dark gifts, okay? This supernatural gift expresses both a mysterious power and insidious influence. Work with your DM to determine how your character gained this dark gift. Is it a manifestation of a family curse? Is it a reward for a sacrifice you made to a forgotten shrine? Naturally, there may be some sort of dark lord, similar to, like, think of kind of your pact with your warlock, right? So these are gifts. They're not going to change the entirety of your class. They're not their own new things. They're just little gameplay bits that you can add to your character sheet, some new features that you may get. Work with your DM how you get these things. This artwork is absolutely incredible. It's stunning. Kind of feels like there was a piece of cool concept art drawn, and then it has like a little bit of a paint daubs sort of Photoshop filter over the top, but I really like it. I like the subtlety, the differences of seeing one thing in the mirror, but yet you have this, and then it's just really well done. And then the shadows and the demons, and really screams to this little section of dark gifts, dark bargains, and so on, right? So you have a bunch of roleplay details, how you got these dark gifts, what they might mean, who your Dark Lord might be, and like what are the effects of this. You're getting these whispers, you're getting these nightmares, these intrusive echoes and whatnot, okay? And then what happens is you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. 8 dark gifts, okay? Echoing Soul, Gathered Whispers, Living Shadow, Mistwalker, and so on. They will all give you some roleplay bits that you can lean into to help flesh out what it means, but they generally will give you some sort of benefit, a new ability, new power, new traits. In this particular case, we're looking at Echoing Soul. You gain proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. You can read, speak, and write 1 additional language of your choice. But immediately after you make an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, kind of any d20 roll, if you roll a 1, your soul's memories emerge and overtake your perceptions and experiences. Now you roll on this chart. You might be charmed. You might be frightened. Memories and sensations overwhelm you. You are incapacitated. So there's some negative things that can happen as a result of these. And it does that for a lot of them. Like if we look at the next one, Voices, Gathered Whispers. Here's a D6 chart about what that means, how that manifests in roleplay. What do you get from it? The good things, you learn the message cantrip. And whenever you're hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to channel your haunting spirits. If the attacker isn't deafened, you get to add your proficiency bonus to your AC. These are good things. But anytime you roll a 1 on an attack roll, ability check, or a saving throw, the haunting voices grow too loud to ignore. You now roll on the Voices from Beyond, which is a D4. You might be deaf for a minute. You might be frightened for a fixed amount of time. Within the next 10 minutes, blah, blah, blah. You have a disadvantage on the next roll you make. So it has a lot of that, and I like that it plays into, yes, you're getting some good things. You don't need these. You need to work with your DM whether you got this dark gift, and if there's a Dark Lord associated to it, like over time, you're going to owe a favor type of thing. But I like that it does that for a lot of them, where it's not always just clear cut, you're just getting good thing, good thing, good thing. There may be some negative consequences by having these dark gifts. So that's the essence of what's there, okay? You have 2 new subclasses. You have the College Bard of Spirits. I'll kind of let you... Pretty neat piece of artwork. I thought she was holding a magic card, but looks like a tarot deck or something. I'll let you kind of pause the screen here if you need to, the video. And then you have the Undead Warlock, kind of their new expanded spell list. We'll go over a couple of these real quick. You can manifest aspects of your patron's dreadful power. As a bonus action for a minute, you gain 10 hit points, 1d10 plus Warlock level. Whenever you hit a creature, they're basically, if they fail a saving throw, they're going to be frightened of you. You're immune to the frightened condition. you're channeling these elements of undead, right? Things that would normally bother you, but they're a part of you now. So you've got Grave Touch, Necrotic Husk. You can kind of pause them and see how it goes from there, right? So there you have it. 2 new subclasses, backgrounds. It goes over horror characteristics, some general background features. This section presents optional features. So sort of things that you can add on to existing backgrounds. Optional features for any background. You may replace the standard feature of your background with any of the options presented here. Inheritor, Mist Wanderer, Spirit Medium, Trauma Survivor, things that fit the tone of what this book is about, right? Traveler. Now, when you get into, here's some personality traits, right? You know, the flaws, the ideals, those sort of things with backgrounds. But you can now replace these and use this instead. But it doesn't mean that you're picking sort of one of the new backgrounds that are here, or at least shown here. You're just adding these onto, you know, I'm already an urchin or a mercenary or a soldier, but I've got some horror ideals and some bonds. Now, the haunted one, I'm not going to go over it too much. That is a full background that's here. This is, I looked it up, compared it, contrasted it. It's the exact same haunted one background that's already in Curse of Strahd. Okay? The investigator, I need to verify. I think that's in Strahd as well. This is Strahd. $209. I apologize, but see, this reminds you that I'm doing this on the fly, peoples. Okay, I think that's a new one. So, Investigator is a new background. I don't see it printed anywhere else. If you know otherwise, you can comment below, and I'm sure you will. Tell me if I'm wrong. So there it is. And then the Horror Trinkets, it's a D100. This is identical. It's the same one that's already in Curse of Strahd. But I mentioned this in the beginning. I like that it puts it all in one place. Okay, so you've got those 2 new backgrounds as well. I think that's it for, yep, that's Chapter 1, Character Creation. Chapter 2, Creating Domains of Dread. What I like about this is purely sort of inspiration. Okay, it's not any module stuff, like, you know, here's exactly what it is. It's guiding you through kind of campaign and adventure design 101. I think that the strength of this is, I don't really like this artwork too much, though. There's something weird about the composition or something. I don't know. Whatever. But distracted. Sorry. You know, I'm a sucker for artwork, and I notice it when I don't like it either. But there's 2 main sections, and that's the essence of it. Creating a Dark Lord. Who's the villain of your Domain of Dread? Okay, Domains of Dread, think of it as, it talks about there's the mists, and swirling within the mists, this sort of unknown, misty, fog-like energy. You might go into these different pockets, which almost are their own independent worlds. Barovia, right, where Strahd is. You might go into Har Arkir. You might go into Falkovnia. You might go into Borka. You might go into Darkon, right? So within the mists, you're going to create these domains, your own. This guides you through the creative process. And I like it because it does what a lot of the things I've done on my videos and what, of course, other YouTubers and other really cool creative people have done. They kind of give you their checklist, right? When you watch a masterclass on Neil Gaiman talking about how he writes, and Brandon Sanderson's tips on storytelling, and Patrick Rothfuss, and so on. How do you create content? This is helping you create your own sort of dark world where your players are going to adventure in. Create a Dark Lord. Here's all the details about it. This kind of basically takes your Dark Lord and makes them more than just villain 01, right? Like just a high-level CR monster that's a throwaway. No, your villains should have all of the important NPC traits, right? What are their wants? What are their goals? What are they afraid of? What are they running from? What's their past? What's their history? And it gives you tables and bullet points and things to... It gives you things to chunk through. Notice how you're giving your Dark Lord basically background traits, flaws, ideals. How do you develop them? What about them makes them monstrous? You know, do they have any... The Dark Lord loses their voice. The Dark Lord's eyes distend from their sockets like a slug's tentacles. Just different physical things and mental and emotional things that make them feel... You know, that's why Vader, Joker... They're villains, but why are they some of the greatest and coolest characters ever? Because they're so complex. This helps you create those Dark Lords as sort of the villain, the main boss, if you will, of your domain of dread. And then as you create your domain, it offers so many things, okay, that you can go off of. There's too much to read through here, but that's the essence of what's here. There's a lot of sit back, grab your, what is it? Whiskey and cigar, or perhaps your Mountain Dew and Doritos, or maybe just your cup of coffee. Sit back and read. Sit back and stay a while. Allow me to tell you the tale of creating domains of dread. You notice you don't have a lot of, roll the D20 and like gameplay crunchy rules bits, right? That's what I like. And that's the essence of it. These aren't rules. These are just guidelines, things you can think through when you're creating your own. And there is a ton. If I just scroll through, there's a decent amount of stuff here. Or, as I said, a ton of it. Okay? So that's the essence of what that is. How to create your own domains of dread. Now, we have some established domains of Ravenloft already. Okay? It talks about Ravenloft kind of being the overarching sort of the world, the essence of it all. And then you have within the mist all these different domains. Once again, someone that knows Ravenloft a little bit better than me from 1st or 2nd edition is going to correct me. Whatever. It talks about the myths themselves and kind of using that essence to move through, like what are the things that shroud and keep the domains that you might be creating your own or the ones that already exist, and what makes them separate? What makes them feel like they're not just bordered nations? What makes them feel like separate worlds? It talks about the myths itself. It talks about these things called myth talismans that basically when you're holding a talisman of a specific domain of dread, that's what allows you and sort of is your guidepost, your compass, if you will, that'll allow you to move towards a specific domain. Okay? It talks about the way magic works. It talks about culture and technology, currency, languages that might be spoken, and maybe by impossible coincidence, all domains share a language despite their profoundly different origins. Common. But it mentions that if you want to highlight the differences between domains, you can do away with common and decide that the inhabitants of each domain speak their own unique language. So it just talks about the overarching, how do you want to handle the various domains of Ravenloft, and here's how things might work independent or as the umbrella, not specific to one domain, okay? Then in this chapter, you get into featured domains, all right? Which there's a lot. Barovia, Bluetspur, Borka, the Carnival, Darkon, Dementlio, Falkovnia, Har Arkir, Haslan, Ikath, Kalikari, Cardakas, Lamordia, Mordant. There's a lot here, okay? And they all follow suit with the same sort of information. If I click on Barovia, who's the Dark Lord of Barovia? What's the genre? What are the hallmarks of this domain? These are what the talismans are, the things that you might hold when you're in the mists, wandering through. That would take you to Barovia. A paragraph or two kind of giving you the description of it. Some noteworthy features. Here's some important characters, and when there's a map, it'll give you some important settlements and sites. There it is. And then on Strahd himself. Doesn't have his stat block specifically because it says you're basically going to be using Strahd as a patient and dramatic mastermind. His stats are similar to those of a vampire. And then it gives a few more details on him himself. Strahd's Torment, how do you roleplay him? And then some blurbs on adventures in Barovia. This is the domain I want to use. So it is getting more specific. Okay, we already had that first chapter or the second chapter where it talks about creating your own domains. Here's ones that already exist. And it's not full, here's Adventure 101 of read this to your players. But it gives us enough that if I want to use Barovia, I can use what's here. Okay, let's just take a look at the diversity and how cool all of the content is that's here. You have Barovia, Gothic Horror, Undead Despot. Is that Despot? Despo? Notorious Haunted Strongholds, and Tragic Resurrection. Bluetspur. The Dark Lord is the Godbrain. Genre, Cosmic Horror. Hallmarks, Alien Abductions, Otherworldly Landscapes, Untrustworthy Memories, Monstrous Experimentation. The greatest thing here, Vampiric Mind Flayer. Borka, Gothic Horror and Psychological Horror. So use this domain if you want that. Notice the diversity that's here. Political intrigue, poison, and revenge. The Carnival. Body horror and dark fantasy. If I find it later, there's a piece of artwork that screams Carnival to me. Another big selling point right there. Entertainment. Fey bargains. Misfits. Wandering exiles. Darkon. Dark fantasy and disaster. Fractured realm. Magical ruins. Ongoing supernatural catastrophe. Dementliu. Dark fantasy and psychological horror. Masquerades. Decadent aristocracy. Social decay. Illusions. Imposter syndrome. With a beautiful map. I mean, the legend. There's a lot of gameplay here. We're not talking like a session. Entire adventure story arcs. Each one of these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 kind of mini campaigns right there. Falkovnia. Disaster, dwindling resources, fickle hero worship, impending disaster, suspicion, totalitarian, zombies. Har Arkir, dark fantasy, ancient tombs, desert perils, lost gods, mummies. Hazlan. Dark fantasy and disaster, immoral spellcasters, magic-ravaged environment, magical experiments, and wild magic. Ikath. Body horror and cosmic horror. Endlessly changing labyrinth, deadly Jiangshi, and inescapable dream world. That one sounds cool. Kalikari. Gothic horror and dark fantasy. Monstrous leaders, family intrigue, and a war-torn nation. Cardagas. Dark fantasy and gothic horror. Hidden identities, dangerous performances, exploitative ambitions, and werewolves. Nice touch on the end there. Lamortia. Body horror and gothic horror. Immoral science, bizarre constructs, frigid wilderness, and mutagenic radiation. Mordant. Ghost stories. Ancestral curses, haunted mansions, mist-shrouded moors, vengeful spirits. Yes, it all fits within the umbrella of theme and gothic horror and the macabre. There's so much here, though. It's so different. Reichmalot. Disaster horror and gothic horror. Contagion. Crumbling infrastructure. Martial law. Rats and vermin. Were-rats. And when you see these places, there's, as I said, noteworthy features, settlements and sites. There she is. The Dark Lord. I don't know if on all of these you're going to get stat blocks. It might point us in the direction of what to use. Here you go. Spoiler! As she is cursed... I think she's a were-rat. Right here. Has stats similar to those of a were-rat. She assumes it gives you a bunch... Just like Strahd, stats similar to a vampire, but here's a bunch of different details, right? Animated armor, swarm of rats associated with her, were-rat, blah, blah, blah. So it does give you enough, but it's not necessarily... special new stat blocks for these particular Dark Lords, okay? Tempest. This is about folk horror, fey bargains, nature worship, rural festivals, and secret sacrifices. And then you have Valakin. Gothic horror and slasher horror. Diabolical traps, hostile wilderness, and survival games. So Freddy and Jason are coming for you. Now, other domains of dread. Look how many are here. The essence of this, the land of the mists comprise more than the domains presented in this chapter thus far. Countless domains drift through the mists. The following lands hint at the multitudes of additional domains that make up the domains of dread. Detail and explore these domains in your adventures as you please, or use them as examples when creating your own domains using the guidance that was offered in Chapter 2. Not all domains need to be elaborately detailed settings. As the domains in this section demonstrate, creating a simple concept for a Dark Lord and the horror surrounding them can be a perfect starting point for further development over the course of your adventures. The ones with asterisks are already detailed. They're more fleshed out, the ones that currently exist. And then, there's just so many more. Seer, 1313, the Morning Realm. Notice how, as a domain of dread, we've now transitioned into Eberron. Dark Lord is the last passenger. Hallmarks, escape from disaster, lightning rail. The disaster known as the Morning numbers among the greatest tragedies to befall the world of Eberron. That in the newest, right? Eberron rising from the last war. That's not explored a whole lot, right? Like what exactly happened? The residents of Seer and that whatever happened there, that shroud, the wall of mist that's surrounding the Mournland now. There's so much mystery there. This gives us some more kind of anchor points that we can Anchor to, Forlorn. They're very quick, just a little paragraph, but things that just spark. Seeds, Gastria, Gehenna, Invidia, Keening, Chlor, Markovia. And if I read just very quickly, Chlor. Read the essence of this: impending doom, surreal environment. Depraved science, sapient animals, nightmares, reoccurring dreams, the nightmare court. Cool. Naranjan. Asceticism, brainwashing, shadows, nomadic riders, transformation, evil toys, village of children, haunted bridge, murderous legend. And it starts dealing with these areas. Nearly every domain knows some version of the apparition called the Headless Rider. Obviously, this is very familiar to us, right? Headless Horseman, that type of stuff. But you've got some things that you can lean into here of like who he might be and what that place might be. Right here, it appears as a mercenary in dark armor in Mordant, which is one of the domains already explored, a ghostly cataphract in Harakir, and a mutated centaur in Lamordia. But in each incarnation, certain details remain true. The rider is missing its head. It appears upon a prominent bridge, and it decapitates victims as it endlessly searches for its own head. Should someone escape an encounter with the Headless Rider, they might find a different domain on the opposite side of the Spirit's Bridge. There's gameplay there. In spades. Tons of it. So, this Chapter 3 is multiple books of content. Remember, I paid $24 for this. I've said this on other high-level spotlights and reviews that I've really liked before. I wasn't going to use much here. It's getting the wheels of creativity turning, okay? Now, you have Travelers in the Mists. While it's true that most residents of the Domains of Dread never leave their home domains and wisely don't fixate on what lies beyond, some daring souls do. Those who travel between domains might have the Mistwalker Dark Gift or know how to employ the Mist Talismans, right? The characters in your adventures should feel special if they travel the Mist. Basically, that's saying you're not just using a really big campaign arc here, and each domain is its own little story arc, its own little act. But your players are going to be moving through the Mist, going to different domains. I want to use the Carnival one. I want to do something of my own, inspired by the Mournland, and maybe they tread into the Eberron for a little while, and then they go back through the Mist with these various talismans, and they make their way to Barovia, and then they go to, what's the one, Lamaria or whatever it is, right? But the following sections present groups and individuals who routinely travel the Mist. Kind of the people that portal and use gate to go through the different worlds. The strangers in the Mist table also suggest the kinds of people characters might encounter amid the Mist. The Mist is kind of that veil in between worlds, right? But here's other worldly travelers and various NPCs that they might be able to get things from. Keepers of the Feather, cool symbols and various iconography. You've got the Vistani, talks about their culture, how they're, interact with the Mist and whatnot. You've got other groups, the Church of Ezra, the Circle, the Kargat and the Kargatane, Order of the Guardians, the Priests of Osibis. You have specific individuals, Alana Gray and Arthur Sedgwick, following suit as their important NPCs with kind of that background details, ideals, bonds, flaws, various traits. Adventure with them. What are the sort of things that they're after? What are their goals? Use spies as a stat block if you need to actually use them in combat. The Caller. The Caller uses stats similar to a Succubus Incubus. So it's giving us NPCs now that know a thing or two. The Van Richtens, Erasmus, Ez de Avenir. Where's the other Van Richten? Jandar, Larissa Snowmane, Rudolph Van Richten. The Weather May Foxgrove twins. So it gives a lot of details when your PCs want to really investigate and delve a lot more into this content. Then it gives horror adventures. Okay? This is the overall themes and things you want to think through to create your own adventures. Whether taking what's already there, but fleshing it out further for your table and your group, or if you're creating your own domains, or if you just want to add a horror element to something not really specific to Ravenloft and the Mists and the Domains of Dread, but just some content in your own current world and story. Your PC's going to a haunted castle. How do you make that feel different than a just abandoned castle or a ruined castle? Horror. What it does here, and this is where I talked about this 35 minutes ago, it offers a lot to think through, but it constantly states sort of disclaimers, content warnings on Be careful. Tread lightly. What I like about this, and here's where I'm going to get sort of on my soapbox a little bit. Okay, here's where I'm getting more opinionated on some things. Oftentimes there's been a lot of pushback, especially in recent years. I remember I first read something about Marvel movies and DC and comic movies appealing to all audiences, and adults like it because we can remember the stuff we used to read as a kid. And, Wolverine's been around forever. Everybody knows Spider-Man and Batman, but it also appeals to the 7-8-year-olds because they're just cool. I read something once that they were talking about potentially, maybe it was just a one-sentence rumor for one day, Deadpool was going to be made PC. Or sorry, PC, politically correct. PG-13. Doesn't work. That's a rated R sort of thing. You have to keep it that way, right? There's so much with appealing to all audiences, and I understand it from a business. I respect it from a business decision. But specific to D&D, I used to hear all these things about Dark Sun maybe not being able to be done because is WotC getting too PC? Are they trying to appeal to too many audiences? Are they trying to make sure that it's kid-friendly or user-friendly for those that are not adults? But yet, there's elements of Dark Sun that if you don't have that darkness and that grit, Dark Sun doesn't exist. It gives you these things here. It has some pretty disturbing imagery and themes that are very dark. And I like that instead of excluding it and saying, here is our version of horror adventures and Ravenloft and what that might mean and feel, but we're not going to put these things in because those are taboo subjects. No, it says these things are here. But I love that it offers bullet points, things to read, questions to ask your players. Sit down for session 0, which I made a video on how important that is. How scary do you want the game to be? How difficult? Should there be a high, average, or low threat of death? How grim, gritty, dark, macabre, twisted? How much do you want to delve into mental health and madness, emotional health, death, despair, torture, torment, body, constructs and Frankenstein-y type of stuff? Like, how far do you want to go with this? And I love that it gives you these little points that you can spark and plant as a seed that help you use all the content here or insert this into your own world's adventures and campaigns. But it continues to barrage us in a good way with, here's the things that bring about horror and make things scary and horror, driven. But consider that if your table is, has people that you don't know very well or a young audience. And I like that it just continues to say, when something doesn't fit, just don't use it at all. Right here. If you're not comfortable adding any of these topics to your game, don't include them as options and use them as the starting point for a list of elements that your adventures won't include. So, hey guys, we're doing serious fear, serious horror, really gritty, really dark. You're going to die a lot. Make more characters, but we will not have the following subjects in this game. And I like that it does that. Instead of just saying, we're not going to have it, or planting it and then kind of not having any disclaimers of like, whoa, dude, I didn't realize it was going to get this dark, I like that it says, hey, this is here, and if you really want to include it, you need to have that. Otherwise, you lose the impact and suspense and the thrill of horror. But tread lightly. That's the essence of what you get in horror adventures. Okay? Now, you do have an adventure. The House of Lament is an adventure for a party of 4 to 6 first level characters. Awesome, but kind of disturbing piece of artwork. So, this is the full, read this to your players, blah, 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 right? So there is an adventure here. Okay? And then at the end, you're going to get Monsters of Ravenloft. This is the artwork I was talking. This is incredible. I don't know if that's the carnival one, but Dark Lord Maligno and his Carionet servants ambush the detectives Alana Gray and Arthur Sedgwick. That picture makes me want to read further and create something with that. So that's really neat. You have monsters. What I like here is it has these 6 traits that you can go through in order to transform any monster in their monster manual and make them feel a little more horror-based. It's not necessarily changing CR or they have more AC or they're tougher. No, these are just roleplay things, but how you describe them. what you emphasize, what you focus on, the tactics they use can turn any goblin into something that feels a little more scary. And I like that it offers that. And then, of course, you do have some new monsters. The best way that I can illustrate what's new for monsters is we're going to go to monsters, the beauty of D&D Beyond. I'm going to sort by Van Richten's filter. So now it gives me the little tagline down below. There's 20 on a page. Okay, not all of them. So Body Taker Plant, that's new. I mean, the best one is this one. We've already established this. Where's he at? A book that has any monsters at all is absolutely worth its weight in gold when you have a Vampiric Mind Flayer. Okay, but, I mean, just looking through very quickly, on page 1, that's only in Van Richten's. The Brain in a Jar, that was already in Icewind Dale. The Displacer Beast, obviously that's Monster Manual, right? It's here, used somewhere, and kind of interjected somewhere in the storylines or the domains of Van Richten's, but this is not a new monster, okay? But you are getting the new Doulahan, which is the Headless Horseman guy. Elise. Esmeralda is from Curse of Strahd. So that's new. That's new. That's new. That's new. That's new. That's new. New. Page 2. Ooh. CR 13. I love it. Necrocor. New. Nosferatu. Cool. New. Podling. No picture, but I love it. The Priest. Oh, what are these differences? Blazing, the Dread, Deathly, kind of the same artwork on some, but different CRs. I mean, we've got one that's a CR6, and then we have one that's CR7, a couple of 6s, there's a 4. We have a Relentless Juggernaut. Oh, gosh. That one's cool. So that's new. New, and then... New. Yes, I mean, kind of getting the same, different variants of the same thing, but there's quite a few new monsters as well. So let's go back. Am I done? Yeah, the last bit. There's a spirit board. The spirit board's matching planchette and on how to employ it in Chapter 4. Photocopy both the spirit board and the planchette, then apply them to wood or cardboard to create a mysterious prop for use in your horror adventures. Basically gives you like the ability to create like your own little Ouija board. Pretty damn neat. This here, Chapter 3, Domains. Whether it's going to be a fit for you or not, what I like is you don't have to just use what's here. Here's horror adventures and ways that you can create that theme and tone in your current world, your current games, or use what's here. A couple of new subclass options, 1 new background, 3 sort of new races that you can lean into, bunch of new monsters. I mean, just Chapter 3, $25, $30, guys. So I don't work for WotC, but really good piece of content. Really good. I love more than anything else that the game has felt a little bit, I don't know, what is it? The word? A little tame. A little bit clean lately. Like being careful. Not to offend. This says, nah, it's going to, but maybe don't use this, maybe don't use this, maybe don't use this, maybe don't use this. It keeps doing that. But at least it's like, maybe don't use this, but there's still a damn chart you can roll on if you want to use it. And based on the artwork I'm seeing and stuff like that, it looks like it's not afraid to, you know, rather than saying, we're not going to print this book because a 9-year-old might look at it, it's going to say, when you flip to the next page and your 9-year-old looks at it, they may have nightmares tonight. I like that. Because it gives us choice. There you go. That's it. Covered everything. Thanks, guys. See you later.